Okay, so in our first class we talked about Lightroom and a little bit about Photoshop and when to use one or the other or both. And we also touched on file management and how Lightroom is in some instances better than using Photoshop for editing our photos, such as it's just faster all around, and batch processing, and how much easier it is to do global edits in a non-destructive way. So in a couple in a I tried to do this in all in one video, but it ended up being like a half an hour long, so I'm going to break it up into parts so that we can cover some of those things and give you visual examples that we weren't able to, or that we didn't give in class, to help you guys better wrap your head around what we were trying to explain. So when you go into next week, when we get you on the computers, you have a little bit better of an idea of what we were talking about and how it relates to what you're going to be doing. So I'm going to pull up Lightroom here, and I already had it open. It takes a few minutes to open sometimes, depending. And when we come to Lightroom, mine automatically uploaded the last catalog that I was working with. You can have more than one catalog. Most of the time people don't. I think if you have more than one catalog, then you are doing multiple projects, and you're just up the wazoo, you're doing this professionally. So most people only have one catalog that they work from. And so when you open it up, my catalog, here are some photos from a hunting trip Jay and I took a few months ago, I believe, back in January, over here, because I arrange all my folders by date. You'll see the library, develop, map, book, slideshow, print, and web. We're going to be talking about the library and develop tabs the most. Me personally, I have not used any of these other aspects, but I really haven't gone any further as to taking my photos, editing them, and then handing them out for digital use. Now, if I were to be printing or doing other more upscale professional things with them, I'd probably be using print and web a little bit more. But anyway, so one of the things we talked about that Lightroom has an advantage of is the batch processing. And when we say batch processing, it means that you can edit more than one photo at a time, and it saves a whole lot of time. So I'm going to go to, and there's other things too that will help you. As you can see, these flags here, we'll talk about those later. So I'm going to go, and down here, sorry, I'm jumping around a little bit. Down here, I know there's been stuff done to these photos because this represents keywording. So I have keywords over here, words associated with the photo, metadata, we'll talk about more about that. A little bit of exposure has been done, or some development adjustments, and then also this photo has GPS coordinates because it was taken on a cell phone, and I have that enabled on my phone. So batch processing, I'm going to click on this photo, and instead of clicking on this photo and editing and clicking on the next one and editing and clicking on the next one, these are all fairly close to the same thing. If I wanted all three of these photos, I'm going to hold down the shift key and click and click. Now I have three photos selected, and then because I want to edit them, the library module is used for keywording, metadata, tells you where the file is. It's just basically an information. This is the information not source, what do I want to call that? It's like the hub, I guess, if you would say. But because I want to edit, I'm going to go over here to the develop module, and I have all three you'll see down here in my little thumbnail strip, which I can hide or I can keep active. I prefer to keep it active because then I know I have three photos edited, or three photos selected to edit. So I have these three photos to edit, and then as you can see, I've already edited somewhat, but we'll make some changes. I'm going to, let's say I wanted it a little bit darker. I'm going to bring this exposure thing, or this exposure slider down. And this is just as a visual, I really don't want it that dark. And you will see down here at the bottom, that one edit has been applied to all three of these. So I'm going to Command Z that to undo what I just did. And if I only did that once, I would go here. So I'm have selected once. I'm going to bring that down, and let's say I had a whole bunch, but I wanted the same exposure on each one. Instead of going to each one and remembering that I was at -150, and I could type it in here, a -1.50, sorry, not 150. Instead of doing that each time, or here's my original, I can copy the edits and come over here, oops, clicked on the wrong thing, and paste the edit. That takes a lot of time as well. So I'm going to undo these two things. Oops, and when you do undo, it undoes everything that you do. So it just, as you can see, I did the undo of the edit, and then I clicked on the other picture to undo that edit, and it undid my selection. It undoes, I don't know how you would say that. It will undo each keystroke and each action that you make. As you can see here, it's going through the selections, clicking back and forth. There you go. And we're back to the beginning. So that's one thing that we were talking about, the batch processing. So if I had 100 photos that were done under the same conditions, same exposures, everything, I could edit for that exposure and that tint, all 100 photos all at the same time, and then quickly go through and tweak or look at individually and tweak it just a little bit to my liking. So that is one huge aspect that Lightroom, especially for those that do projects that, you know, like Annie, you'll do portrait photography, you take 500 photos per shoot. If all the conditions are fairly the same, you could quickly edit all 500 photos and go through and pick out which ones you want and which ones you don't want. Okay, so that was batch processing with a little bit of a quick and dirty introduction to Lightroom and some of its features that we will be talking about more in depth as we go along. So next up is global edits and specific edits and a little bit of Photoshop as well.